Greetings, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Awake Mind Reports. I am your host, Robert, delighted once more to serve as your compass in navigating the labyrinthine realms of human thought and cosmic wonder. The appetite for curiosity. It's a fire that never dwindles, a thirst unquenched by the waters of mere answers, don't you agree? Today's intellectual odyssey is set to be a stirring one, a venture into a doctrine so fundamental yet contentious, it has intrigued, confounded, and inspired some of the sharpest minds in our history. We shall delve into the complex tapestry of Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence, an idea that, in its audacity, challenges our deepest notions of time, existence, and morality. In its essence, the notion of eternal recurrence invites us to contemplate our lives as ceaselessly repeating cycles, an intricate dance of moments forever circling back to their origins, only to set forth anew. But is this thought experiment merely a poetic flourish? Or might it hint at the fundamental architecture of the universe itself? Therein lies our exploration for today. So prepare yourself, intrepid listener, to ponder questions that extend beyond mere academic interest. Questions that penetrate the very fabric of how we live, love, and find meaning in a universe that, for all its mysteries, never ceases to tantalize us with the prospect of understanding. You are in for a riveting journey as we unfurl the sails of our collective intellect and embark upon an odyssey that will span from the echoes of ancient philosophy to the forefront of modern scientific theory. This promises to be a memorable episode, one where we do not merely glimpse the cosmos, but actively participate in its immeasurable beauty and complexity. So sit back, relax, but also brace yourself. For your mind, dear listener, is about to embark on a journey that will stretch its very boundaries. Welcome once more to the Awake Mind Reports. Shall we begin? The eternal recurrence. Friedrich Nietzsche's audacious gift to the philosophy of existence. If you will, let us ponder this idea as a hushed secret between nature and man, one whispered through the corridors of time. Picture the relentless waves crashing against the rocks. Each wave in its momentary existence might think itself unique, and yet it is part of an unending cycle, a dance choreographed by the cosmos itself. Nietzsche's concept of the eternal recurrence summons us to a similar contemplation. Imagine a demon appearing at your loneliest moment to utter the terrifying proposition that you shall relive your life in all its joy and agony, not just once, but ad infinitum. The demon's words send shivers down your spine. Yet this very weight, this gravitas, tests your love affair with existence. Here we're confronted with amor fati, the unconditional love of one's fate. Nietzsche's own struggle with this weighty idea echoes in his writings on sickness and convalescence, on how the depths of despair can give birth to peaks of elation. Pain and pleasure are not just intertwined but deeply imbricated, like the complex interplay of light and shadow at dawn. To embrace one, you must be willing to dance with the other. Let's for a moment venture into the realm of ancient Greek philosophy. While the Judeo-Christian tradition taught us to seek the eternal in a heavenly beyond, philosophers like Heraclitus saw the eternal in the here and now, in the endless becoming of the world. For Nietzsche, the eternal recurrence and the will to power are two sides of the same existential coin. One speaks of fate, the other of freedom, one of cyclical patterns, the other of ceaseless striving. Yet in the same way, a river is never the same river twice, becoming is a form of being. Herein lies the crux. Life is not a quiet pond but a turbulent river, eternally recurring yet ceaselessly changing. A will to power in eternal flux. The very contradictions of existence become harmonious in their interplay. In every pulse of tension and release, in each gasp for more power and every sigh of acceptance, life plays out its grandest narrative, oscillating between creation and destruction. We are, each one of us, characters in this narrative. But unlike most stories, this one offers neither denouement nor epilogue. It offers instead a recurring overture, a melody of becoming composed and conducted by the forces that mold us, break us, and make us whole again. This is life in its most effusive jubilation and its most excruciating sorrow. It is the eternal recurrence of a will to create, to destroy, to struggle, and to expand. The world is a stage, and we are but players in the eternal theater of existence. Imagine, if you will, the sublime paradoxes of our existence, captured in the smallest of everyday gestures. When we say yes to one option, we say no to another. We assert and negate in the same breath, as if the universe itself whispers through us, manifesting its dual nature. If one peers through Nietzsche's lens, one finds an invitation to elevate those mundane choices to something sacrosanct, a kind of daily ritual that reaffirms our compact with existence. The act of choosing is elevated to an art form. And why shouldn't it be? If life is to recur eternally, each decision reverberates through the cosmos, echoing through time like a never-ending symphony. But Nietzsche wasn't alone in his rumination on eternal cycles. The ancient Greeks long before him explored similar terrain. Their myths are not just stories but deeply philosophical commentaries on the eternal questions that haunt us. Take for instance the tale of Sisyphus, forever condemned to roll a boulder uphill, only to see it tumble back down. In this bleak tale we see a mirror of Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, but also an earlier wrestling with the same existential predicaments. In our modern age, perhaps this mythic punishment could be seen as less of a curse, and more of an inevitable challenge that tests our mettle. Now let's turn to the will to power, Nietzsche's magnum opus that never was, pieced together from notes and unfinished manuscripts. The will to power is a philosophical Swiss Army knife, a multi-purpose tool that can slice through layers of traditional thought. Unlike Darwin's survival of the fittest, which could be seen as a glorified rat race, the will to power isn't merely a quest for survival, but a striving for significance, a hunger for meaning. The will to power and the eternal recurrence may seem contradictory, but that's only if you imprison them in binary thought. Nietzsche isn't offering us either or, he's offering us both and. We're not choosing between change and permanence, we're harmonizing them. You see, the music of existence is polyphonic. Multiple melodies coexist, each with its own tempo and texture. The artist, whether a composer or a philosopher, embraces the complexity and produces something singular and transformative. Imagine the notion, if you will, that everything in existence, each thought, each feeling, every trivial act, repeats eternally. A glorious moment becomes an unending stanza in the cosmic song, but equally, the discord, the mistakes, and even the mediocrity play their relentless refrain. Zarathustra faces an agony, a sickness of spirit. He envisages both the highest peaks and the lowest valleys of human potential, bound together in an endless cycle. Even the smallest man recurs eternally, shackling Zarathustra with a sense of revulsion so profound he falls into a 7-day convalescence. It's during this time that his animals, his companion spirits, come to him, speaking in riddles yet filled with wisdom. But here's the rub. If the wheel of existence rolls forever, if everything breaks and is joined anew, then the very concept of eternal recurrence is a trial, a weight one must bear to reach the zenith of human potential, the Overman. The animals remind Zarathustra of his role as the herald of this unsettling but transformative doctrine. A doctrine that will, in its inescapable rhythm, return just as Zarathustra will, along with every earthly element, every speck of cosmic dust. Intriguingly, the moment we readers immerse ourselves in Zarathustra's tale, we too join this cycle. We oscillate between highs and lows, between social bonds and isolating truths, between the terrestrial and the celestial. The snake and the eagle, Zarathustra's soul and Dionysus, they all symbolize the highest form of existence, a life that fully embraces its eternal return. And the gateway named moment, two eternal lanes, one running back, one running forward, meeting in opposition at this juncture. A pivotal point representing the eternal tensions of existence, but also its inevitable continuity. A moment that drags with it all future things, because how could it not? It has been, and so it shall be as the wheel turns. Must we not return eternally? What might initially seem like a cerebral exercise reveals itself as a profound invitation to embrace life in its entirety, to assert yes in the face of anguish, to become the ultimate life affirmer, to strive for the Overman. It is the culmination of Zarathustra's journey, an unearthing of what it truly means to live as the last disciple of the philosopher Dionysus. You see, the notion of eternal recurrence not only pierces the veil of our existential contemplations, but also finds echoes in modern systems, be it in the quantum mechanics' multiple worlds interpretation, or the cycles of boom and bust in economics, or the rise and fall of civilizations in anthropology. Patterns recur, albeit under different guises, in a sort of cosmic rhyme. Consider the ecosystem, forever caught in its cycles of birth and decay. Each organism, each fragment of life, is part of this eternal recurrence. Yet there's always adaptation, a striving for something more efficient, more resilient, akin to Zarathustra's Overman perhaps, a form that has transcended previous limitations, reborn in the spirals of time to confront the universe anew. Or take the rhythms in music and poetry. Aren't they also a nod to the eternal recurrence? Themes and motifs return, but each time they do, they gain an added layer, a nuance. The musician or poet, much like Zarathustra, often grapples with the weight of this recurrence. It's both an artistic challenge and an existential one. To innovate within the familiar, to find uniqueness within the cyclical, to add a singular voice to the endless chorus of existence. But let us not forget the realms of personal experience. Have you ever found yourself drawn to the same types of challenges, relationships, or opportunities? Perhaps, unbeknownst to us, our souls too are etching patterns across the fabric of time, echoing Zarathustra's paradox. We may not lie down for 7 days in despair, but who among us has not had moments where the weight of our choices, recurring as they do, makes us question the essence of our being? At the heart of it, the eternal recurrence serves as a mirror, reflecting not just the grandeur and pettiness of humanity, but also its potential for transformation. It is, after all, the profound tension between creation and destruction, joy and suffering, good and evil that galvanizes us toward growth, toward becoming the overman, if you will. Indeed, the moment we confront the eternal return is the moment we must make a choice, to succumb to the gravity of existence, as symbolized by Zarathustra's dwarf, or to rise to affirm life in its totality. In that moment, we are all philosophers, whether we recognize it or not. We become the architects of our fate, scribes of our life stories as entangled in the cosmic loops as Zarathustra, Dionysus, or even the celestial bodies that wheel through the night sky. But what if the eternal recurrence is a factual aspect of our universe? The implications would be as staggering as they are enlightening. The very fabric of ethics, purpose, and meaning would be called into question, necessitating a profound recalibration. In science, for example, the idea chafes against the second law of thermodynamics, which posits an eventual heat death, where all matter is evenly distributed and no more work can be done. Essentially, an end to the cosmic cycle. But should eternal recurrence be factual, it would necessitate a reworking of our scientific paradigms to incorporate an infinite regress and progress of events, perhaps challenging our conceptions of linear time itself. Now, let's wade into the pool of ethics for a moment. If every action, every thought, every glimmer of existence is eternally recycled, would it intensify the moral weight of our choices or nullify it? One could argue that the knowledge of eternal return might inspire a heightened sense of responsibility. Knowing our actions reverberate infinitely could inspire a more thoughtful engagement with the world. Yet paradoxically, it could also lead to a nihilistic resignation, rendering all endeavors meaningless in the face of endless repetition. It's like the tale of Sisyphus reimagined. Except instead of despairing over the eternal repetition of his task, what if Sisyphus found a strange comfort in knowing that each iteration could be an opportunity for nuanced understanding, for learning, for small yet meaningful variations? Even in eternal recurrence, there may be room for what some would term free will, the ability to approach each cycle with a refined perspective. But my dear interlocutor, let's not disregard the psychological dimensions. The realization of a factual eternal recurrence would present a colossal challenge to our mental fortitude. How would one find joy in love, adventure, or discovery, knowing that it's but a speck in an eternal loop? Yet perhaps it's in that very foreknowledge that we might locate a heightened sense of beauty and tragedy, akin to reading a beloved novel for the umpteenth time, finding fresh nuances with each read. A factual eternal recurrence could serve as both a liberating and ensnaring construct. The wheel of existence would indeed keep turning, but each spin might bring forth its own unique set of cosmic variables, a fresh tableau upon which the eternal drama of existence could unfold anew. So, imagine if this speculative what if actually reveals itself as an undeniable what is. We'd be inhabiting a cosmos that weds the haunting certainty of determinism to the exhilarating unpredictability of nuance. Whether this notion electrifies you or fills you with a sense of trepidation, it unquestionably imparts a gravitas to life, blended with an ethereal lightness that would give even Zarathustra reason for contemplation, wouldn't you agree? And from the scraps of evidence we have, it seems that this very concept offered Friedrich Nietzsche many such instances for deep reflection. You see, in the later chapters of The Will to Power, a text cobbled together from Nietzsche's notes by his sister, we find a more materialistic tone. It suggests that the eternal recurrence isn't just a sublime thought experiment for a rainy day, but a ceaseless cyclical reality. Whether these are truly Nietzsche's views or the alterations of his sister is a scholastic quibble we won't delve into today. Yet we can't dismiss its relevance as a backdrop to our understanding. Now consider the infinite monkey theorem. This delightful paradox where a monkey, given an eternal time span and a typewriter, will eventually compose the works of Shakespeare. It's whimsical, but it captures the essence of infinity, doesn't it? If every possible combination of atoms will occur, reoccur, and occur yet again, the universe becomes this magnificent theater of endless repetition. It's a ceaseless symphony with movements so complex we could spend several lifetimes trying to discern its notes. And here's where things get exhilarating. If we accept the universe as a grand cosmic cycle that repeats itself, then the very fabric of time is transformed. Time is no longer this linear arrow shot from the bow of creation. It's a circle, and circles bring us back to ancient wisdom, don't they? The Buddhists, the Pythagoreans, even the cosmology of the Norse, all envisioned time as cyclical. The notion of linear time, a relatively recent import from Judeo-Christian thought. This shift in Nietzsche's perspective, hypothetical though it might be, creates a rift, a chasm separating him from Christian values. You see, Nietzsche's work was always a hammer to the old edifices of thought, seeking to instigate a transvaluation of values. And here the eternal recurrence serves as a chisel, etching away at a worldview that has dominated Western thought for centuries. No longer do we need to concern ourselves with a universe that was created ex nihilo, for the very notion of creation loses its grasp when set against the backdrop of infinity. So let's venture further into the realm of philosophy and religion. Almost every culture has looked at the material world with a skeptical eye, often dismissing it as an illusion or a shadow of a higher reality. But Nietzsche says, no more. If every moment is a cosmic repetition, an eternal recurrence, then every moment gains monumental significance. This isn't a fleeting flash between two eternities, as Schopenhauer would lament. No, it's a constant and everlasting light. We're suddenly invited into a life-affirming philosophy of tremendous consequence. This is a radical departure, not just from Schopenhauer or the great religions, but from an almost universal skepticism about the significance of material existence. For if life is not merely a fleeting moment but an endless loop, then every joy, every sorrow, every touch, and every glance become infinite. It shifts the lens through which we view our lives, don't you agree? So, while the notion might seem daunting or even disheartening to some, it also liberates us from the weight of cosmic nihilism. A universe constantly recreating itself in a whirlpool of infinite possibilities. What could be more Dionysian? It's a world beyond good and evil, bound only by the ecstasy of eternal recurrence. In this realm of thought, each moment is not a mere flicker, soon to be extinguished and forgotten. No. Imagine, each moment, good or bad, reliving itself endlessly, a tireless cosmic wheel. Now don't be alarmed, rather, lean into the thought. Nietzsche urges us to embrace life so wholly that we might be willing to live it over and over again, without a shred of regret. A divine affirmation of existence, wouldn't you say? The question then turns not to the verification of this cosmic pattern, but to its sublime, almost poetic implication. Is it a framework grounded in scientific reality? Nietzsche himself seemed entangled in this notion, as if grappling to anchor his philosophy to the very matter and energy that compose our universe. An ambitious feat indeed, trying to straddle the line between physical law and metaphysical longing. A man of his intellectual prowess may have envisioned this endless loop as a hypothesis, nay, a catalyst, to substantiate his philosophical musings. Yet one must also consider the timing of this intellectual pursuit. We cannot easily dismiss the circumstances in which these notions were penned, the trembling hands perhaps of a mind on the cusp of unraveling. An obsessive preoccupation or a glimpse into an unraveling sanity. These last inklings of Nietzsche's brilliance, as jotted in The Will to Power, stand as a haunting prelude to the silence that would engulf his voice forever. The beauty here, you see, is not just in affirming every joyous laugh or tear, but also in the courage to accept every stumble, every heartache as part of this eternal tapestry. Life, a grand composition in which we are both the composer and the listener. Whether or not Nietzsche was tapping his philosophical notes to a cosmic beat, he hands us a timeless key, a key that unlocks a life worth reliving. Consider for a moment Nietzsche's final chapter in The Will to Power, which some say was orchestrated by the hands of others but nevertheless holds within its pages an argument of such profound resonance. In it, the notion of eternal recurrence, once a mere thought experiment, morphs into a stark existential reality. This shift in perception has far-reaching implications, not merely as an intellectual riddle, but as a statement on the very ontology of existence. Ontology, a word laden with the weight of human aspiration and cosmic indifference. It is the crucible wherein Nietzsche chooses to transpose his melody of the eternal recurrence from the minor key of hypothesis to the major key of physical law. Now, the kaleidoscopic array of perspectives on time, whether cyclical as in the lore of Eastern religion and classical Greek thought, or linear, a vestige of Judeo-Christian influence, is less a matter of metaphysical hair-splitting than a terrain on which entire worldviews are built or shattered. Nietzsche, in moving from the theoretical to the experiential, undermines not just the chronology of existence, but the moral infrastructure that supports it. The notion of a cyclical universe casts a long shadow on the idea of creation. The term creation itself becomes an artifact of a bygone era, much like an ancient totem worshipped by tribes whose names have been lost in the sands of time. We needn't be preoccupied with beginnings when the universe is a self-sustaining loop, ever renewing, ever the same. This renders the idea of a starting point not only redundant but quaintly archaic. But let's not brush aside the infinite monkey theorem, a fanciful image that resonates with the statistical enormity of the universe. Picture, if you will, our metaphorical monkey eventually typing out not just the works of Shakespeare, but perhaps this very conversation. An infinity of recurrences all orbiting the nucleus of cosmic possibility. If each moment is but one frame in an unending reel, what gravitas each frame acquires. Our ancestors, from the Greek Stoics to the shamans of the Amazon, shared a suspicion about the material world, a skepticism often wrapped in the eloquent shroud of myth and scripture. All is vanity, they proclaimed, as though earthly existence were a pale shadow on the cave wall. Nietzsche dares to reorient the spotlight, illuminating not just the shadow but the object and the light that casts it. In affirming the eternal recurrence, he invites us to embrace the whole tableau, shadow, object, light, and all. In this brave new worldview, every fleeting moment becomes an eternal monument in the universe's grand architecture. It's the essence of a life-affirming philosophy, making existentialist dalliances with despair seem like brief adolescent fancies. This is not merely an exercise in academic rigor or philosophical dalliance. It's a call to redefine our values, our ethics, and ultimately, our very understanding of reality itself. The challenge posed by Nietzsche's reimagined eternal recurrence is nothing less than a total reorientation of how we approach existence. It offers us a glimpse of an eternity not beyond this world, but deeply embedded within it, within every breath, every thought, every tear, every laugh. And so here we are, caught in this fascinating web of ideas, concepts echoing across ages and civilizations. Each sentence we explore becomes a stepping stone in an unending path that circles back to where it began, yet always offers the promise of a new vista just around the bend. But as the threads of our conversation draw together, we find ourselves yet again at that bittersweet moment, the conclusion of another episode of the Awake Mind Reports. While each ending marks a pause, it also serves as an echo, resounding in the corridors of our thoughts until we convene once more. It's been an exhilarating journey through the labyrinthine marvels of Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, a doctrine that challenges us to embrace the magnificence of our existence in all its cyclical complexity, the beauty of thought. It never truly ends, but rather spirals into ever deeper and more fascinating caverns of discovery. So as we bid adieu to today's inquiries, let us keep our intellectual candles burning, illuminating the path until we gather again for yet another journey through the corridors of enlightenment. And what corridors await us? Next week, we will embark on another expedition into the world of ideas, one that promises to be as stimulating and thought-provoking as today's discourse. Do ensure you tune in next week for another episode that promises to enchant the mind and elevate the soul. Until then, dear audience, farewell and ponder deeply. This is your host, Robert, signing off from the Awake Mind Reports. Until we meet again, good night.